Okay, Google. Okay, Google, stop.
Okay, Leader, at 7 PM and we're streaming on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this executive meeting of East Herts District Council, the first of 2021. First of all, I would like to, as on the agenda, the first item is apologies. Do we have any apologies? No, that's great. So agenda item 2 are my announcements. First of all, welcome to everyone for being on this YouTube call. So please remember that we are being recorded and that this is a formal meeting of the council. Please do not use the chat function. If you wish to say anything, please raise your blue hand. Wherever possible, please stay on mute. And also, if you are able to, please keep your camera on so that members of the public who are viewing this know that each and every one of you is here as an active listening participant. So first of all, Happy New Year to you all. I hope you all managed to get some rest and you had some quiet and perhaps a little time to reflect. I think the word last year was, please can you unmute? I think the word of the moment is challenging. As you all know, we have now gone into tier 5, which means essentially it's tier 4 plus. And the numbers for us in this area, for those with coronavirus, the new variant in particular, the numbers are not good. And the only way that we can beat this is to keep our distance, wear masks wherever possible, both inside and outside, and keep your hands washed and clean. And don't mix with anyone outside your own household or your own bubble or your support care area. So that's all really pretty depressing. But the vaccination is being rolled out. And whilst it may not necessarily be a total panacea, it has to be a prevention as well as us all playing our part. Hopefully by the time we get to the summer, we can all actually meet physically, because I think that's one of the things that we've all missed over the last months, and certainly we will miss in the coming few months. So that's my announcements. I'd now like to take you, first of all, I'd like each member of the executive to say hello. Please, can you just, so that members of the public are well aware as to who we all are, please just say what portfolio you cover, and I will come to each of you in alphabetical order. So, Councillor Boylan.
Good evening. My name is Peter Boylan. I am the executive member for neighbourhoods, and within my portfolio I'm responsible for housing, licensing and community safety.
Thank you. Councillor Eric Buckmaster.
Good evening, I'm Eric Buckmaster. I'm executive member for wellbeing, which includes environmental health, wellbeing, the leisure centres and Hertford Theatre.
Thank you. Councillor Cutting.
Good evening. My name is George Cutting. I'm the executive member for corporate services at East Herts District Council, which includes communications, procurement, human resources and legal department.
Thank you very much. Councillor Goodeve.
Good evening, I'm Jan Goodeve and I'm the executive member for planning and economic growth.
Thank you. Councillor McAndrew.
Good evening, Graham McAndrew, environmental sustainability covering car parking, waste collection, air quality, etc.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rutland Barsby.
Good evening. My portfolio is communities, which includes partnerships and engagement, and I also look after members' welfare and training. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
I'm Councillor Jeff Williamson. I'm the executive member for financial sustainability.
Thank you. If we can now go on, please, to agenda item 3, which are the minutes of the last executive meeting. These start on page 7 and go through to page 32. Are there any comments or questions, or can I ask for a proposer from the executive and a seconder for these minutes? Councillor Cutting as proposer, Councillor McAndrew as seconder. Can each member of the executive raise their hand if they approve these minutes? Thank you. Are there any against the minutes or any abstentions? Thank you. The minutes are carried. Agenda item 4 is declarations of interest. Now, these are declarations of interest not only amongst the members of the executive, but also any other observer in this meeting. Are there any conflicts of interest on the agenda items in this meeting? No, thank you. So we now go on to agenda item 5.
Excuse me, Leader.
Yes.
If I may, this is not a conflict of interest, but I think I probably ought to declare a new interest which I need to register with Legal and Democratic Services, in that I have been appointed by Hertfordshire Community Trust as a senior clinical manager, managing the part of the mass vaccination programme across Hertfordshire.
Thank you, Councillor Boylan. That's a great piece of news, and we thank you for your service to the community. So let's all get going, shall we? Let's all go queue up and get the vaccine as soon as we all can, in the right order of priorities. So agenda.
Wiley had his hand up, Chair.
I'm sorry, who has their hand up?
It's me, Linda. Thank you, Leader. It's already on the declaration of interest, but under item, is it 3 or 4, I should declare again that I do run a business with East Herts.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out to me. Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Can we now move on to agenda item 5, which is on page 33, which is contracting out of homelessness reviews. Councillor Boylan, please can you introduce this paper?
Thank you, Leader. This paper provides the background and explains the arrangements for the current management of statutory reviews of decisions made by this council relating to homeless applicants. There is a proposal to further improve and strengthen the governance around these decisions by moving to an independent external review process used by many other councils. Before committing to a longer term change of process, the proposal is to introduce this on a trial basis until the 31st of March next year, and that depending on the outcome of that trial, a decision be delegated to myself and the Head of Housing and Health to determine the most appropriate way forward. There are 3 recommendations on page 34, and I would propose members approve these tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder for this paper, please? Councillor McAndrew, thank you. Are there any comments or questions on this paper? I'm having trouble seeing blue hands, so if someone can help me out here.
No blue hands that I can see, Leader.
Not at the moment.
Okay, that's great. In that case, we have a proposer and a seconder, and this is a very good piece of work, and I would like to thank officers for the time that they have spent doing this. I know that it will be something which our homelessness will benefit from. May I have all those in favour? Right, all those against? Any abstentions? Okay, that paper is carried. Thank you very much. If we now go on to agenda item 6, which is on page 45. Another paper from Councillor Boylan. This is on affordable housing research and overview and scrutiny review. Councillor Boylan, please.
Thank you, Leader. Almost a year ago now, the Council commissioned an important piece of independent research from the highly regarded Housing Quality Network into the future provision of affordable housing in East Herts. Members and officers have now received the final report and a presentation from the lead researcher last month. This detailed study will now be used to guide the Council's continued efforts to bring forward a steady supply of affordable homes matched to local need. The report presented this evening summarises the findings and recommendations found in the report and provides an outline of how we plan to use this valuable evidence to guide the Council in preparing various strategy and policy documents going forward. It will be particularly helpful when reviewing and revising the Council's housing strategy this year, and we shall certainly be looking at how members will be consulted and involved in that journey. The report also reflects on the findings of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommendations on how we can better engage with registered providers. There are 3 recommendations for the Executive to consider this evening, commencing on page 45, and I would urge members to approve these recommendations tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boylan. May I have a seconder, please, for that? Councillor Goodeve, thank you. Are there any comments or questions on this paper? Right, I can't see any blue hands. Is that correct? Miney, are you waving at me, or is that a blue hand? Miney, Councillor Goldspink. Councillor Goldspink, thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you. I would just like to say how much I welcome this report. It's an excellent report, and also the official one, which was done by the outside consultants. I do welcome most warmly, and I'm delighted to see the recommendations, especially pleased about the recommendations following on from the task and finish group with regard to our relations to the housing associations. Seems a long time ago that we did the work, but it's now lovely to see the recommendations, and I welcome them all and I fully support them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goldsmith, for those comments. Absolutely, this has been a good piece of work, but it's been very thoroughly done, and I think the outcomes and the recommendations are exactly spot on. Are there any other comments or questions? Right, I can't see any more blue hands on that one. Executive, please can I take you to the recommendations on page 45 and 46, A, B and C. We will take them en bloc. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that is carried. We can now go on to agenda item 7, which is a note on the decision of the Chief Exec to approve a scheme for the Local Authority Discretionary Grant Fund under urgency provisions. Councillor Williamson, are you presenting this report?
If I may please, Leader. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, in connection with the second national lockdown, which began on the 5th of November, the government's announced further grant funding to support businesses affected by the restrictions then imposed. This included the Additional Restrictions Grant, which is a discretionary grant scheme for local authorities to design and administer. So we needed to produce a scheme under which this funding could be allocated to eligible businesses. The details of the scheme are given in the report. In order to avoid any delays in getting the scheme implemented, our Chief Executive used urgency powers available within our Constitution to agree the scheme, and when a decision is made in this way, our Constitution requires that it is brought to the next meeting of the Executive for noting. In addition to that, I'm also asking for authority from colleagues on the Executive to make any changes to the scheme in conjunction with our Head of Revenues and Benefits, should we deem it necessary. Hence, we have the 2 recommendations, please, Leader, on page 59, which I am pleased to move.
Thank you. May I have a seconder for that, Councillor Rutland-Barsby? Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on this paper?
Councillor Wiley has his hand up, Leader.
Yep. Thank you very much. Councillor Wiley?
Thank you, Leader. It is a comment, really. If members look at 2.3 on page 60, it says the government expects this fund to be primarily used for discretionary grants. They wish to encourage local authorities to help those businesses which, whilst not mandatorily closed, are severely impacted. However, if you went onto the online application, which closed on the 3rd and has disappeared off the website now for obvious reasons, it did actually ask you to state your last trading date. To me, that is past tense. What it should have said is, are you still trading? Yes or no? And if it's no, what was your last trading date? I feel that that one phrase may have prohibited some small businesses from actually applying for a grant that they may be entitled to. And I would ask the Executive to look at either extending the application for 48 to 72 hours, but to also rephrase it if they do that, so as businesses fully understand that if they are still trading, they can still apply for the grant. They may not get the grant, I totally accept that, but this way, I think at least we're allowing them the chance to actually still apply. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Councillor Wiley. Can I ask officers for their comments, please? Sue, can you give us some of your thoughts on this?
Well, our intention is always to maximise take-up of the grant, and if there is anything unclear, our experience is that customers tend to contact us directly if they're unsure, particularly if it contradicts the eligibility criteria that we would have detailed on there as well. But I understand that some people may not have felt that they wanted to contact us and have excluded themselves. If members felt that it was appropriate to extend the scheme for a few more days, we would have to take that on board. I would hasten to add, though, that because the funding is limited, we can't pay out any other entitlements from applicants from this grant scheme until all applications are closed and verified so that we can see how much money we are likely to be called upon to spend.
Okay, thank you. Richard, do you have any thoughts on it, on Councillor Wiley's concern?
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I accept that there is some lack of clarity. I think that's unfortunate, and we can learn from that going forwards. I think the comments from the Head of Revenues and Benefits Shared Service are that perhaps applicants would have phoned up and made inquiries, but it is possible to extend the scheme for a few days, albeit with the caveat that Sue makes that it will delay the payment of the grant for a few days to other applicants, but it is possible to do that if members so wished.
Okay. Executive, do you have any thoughts on extending it for a couple of days? I mean, I guess if we did that, it would basically be a social media and something on the website, and then things would try and get it out there as far as possible, so that if we had people had misconstrued the application form, that it did give them an extra opportunity, if be it on a short period of time. I think we also have to be very aware that there is a new scheme that the government announced this morning to help businesses through this next period of lockdown, and that the officers in Sue's team are under extreme pressure. So I think we do have to take that into account. However, if it does enable a small business to actually gain some funding just to keep going, then we should give them any opportunity. Executive, can I ask you if you have any thoughts, please? Councillor Buckmaster and then Councillor Boylan.
Thanks, Leader. I tend to agree with the view that potential applicants would have telephoned in or contacted the council. That's just based on previous experience from the earlier grants, where there were queries that came in. I don't, in principle, have any issue with extending. I do accept the fact that the department are under extreme pressure, and this will delay payment to all of those who have already applied. And I'm assuming that if we were to do that, it doesn't stop the validation of all the applicants in the meantime. I just think it's an unfortunate thing, but I don't imagine that many people will have fallen into that issue, but I'm happy to extend if that's what other members agree with. Okay.
Councillor Boylan?
I think that given the issue has been pointed out, I think we have a responsibility to act appropriately, and I think it's only right that we should allow some extra time with some amendments to ensure that is very clear. I think if that could be done by the end of tomorrow with an extra 48 hours to take us to the end of Friday, yes, there will be a small delay in overall payment, but actually I'd rather know that everybody has had an equal opportunity at the bite of the cherry.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McAndrew, I saw your hand, and then I'll go to Councillor Cutting.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's a valid point that Councillor Wiley's raised, and a couple of days really isn't going to make much difference. The applications can be processed as they come in, and it'll just be the odd few, if any, that sort of holds it up a very, very short period of time. So I'm quite for extending it for a couple of days. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cutting.
Thank you. I concur with the view that we should extend for 48 hours, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rutland-Barsby.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I agree with everyone else. I would like to thank Sue Tarrant and her team for all the enormous hard work that they do, and we're just adding a little extra here. Even if we save one business, it will be worthwhile. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Williamson.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, listening to all the comments, I'm happy to endorse that we give this extra time. Recommendation B does allow us to alter the scheme, so that would help with that. So I'll work with Sue to make it happen.
Okay, thank you. James, does the recommendation that we wish to extend the time where people can apply, is that covered already in recommendation B, or do we need to modify it or add another recommendation?
Leader, I think recommendation B is drafted widely enough that it does give that leeway to revise the scheme where appropriate, and obviously the recommendation being made by members tonight would be an appropriate position to make the amendment. So I don't think there needs to be any sort of additional additions. Okay,
that's great. So we can vote on those two recommendations with the understanding that Jeff and Richard will work with Sue on a suitable time period, but I would think most likely it does not go beyond either Thursday night or Friday lunchtime. And that our comms team is geared up to get some tweets out there, which we can all retweet and re-Facebook. Okay, and obviously a comment is put on the website to say that there is this extended time. So Sue, thank you very much. We just hope we do manage to pull in one or two that just would have been missed out. That's the thing that we need to make sure happens. Okay, so executive, we have a proposer and a seconder for this. The recommendation is on page 59, A and B, with the modification that we have spoken about, but that does not need to go through any formal changes apart from the recommendation that is already there. So all those in favour? Okay, thank you. All those against? And any abstentions? Sue, is that you saying good night, or do you wish to say something? Good night. Thank you. And Councillor Wiley, thank you for bringing that to us to our attention. Just hope that it does mean that somebody is able to. I do agree though with Councillor Buckmaster. I think anyone who thinks that they're not eligible for a grant or doesn't know quite what to do, can contact all of us. But hopefully this will just give a little bit of peace of mind to those who may not necessarily have picked up the nuances of the language. Okay, agenda item 8 is an overview scrutiny update. John, I think you're the verbal update, if you've got anything.
I don't believe we've had a meeting since the certainly the last council or the last executive chairman. We have got one in a few weeks' time, but I don't believe there's anything of any urgency to. Oh, sorry, we did have one. It was a very quick meeting, so no, there's nothing that I have to report.
Okay, that's great, thank you. And then the following agenda item is an update from the Audit and Governance Committee. Councillor Pope, anything to add?
Well, the Audit and Governance Committee has not met since the last meeting of the Executive. The next meeting of this committee will be on the 27th of January. So nothing to report.
Okay, that's great. So I believe we have now gone through the agenda. Thank you all very much for your contributions and for being with us. Please have a good new year, a good January, a good February, and then perhaps in March, the evenings will be getting lighter and everyone will be a lot more cheerful, but please stay safe. The new variant is not, it is a reality. So just keep yourselves all very safe. Okay, good night and thank you. Oh, and I close the meeting at, when is it? 19:20, there we are, just to be formal.